G'day friends, it's Andrew here again from Nature's Image Photography, and I've been giving the Leica Panasonic 200mm f2.8 lens a run to see how it goes on my Lumix G9. This lens came to me on loan from Panasonic Australia, and when they approached me they said they noticed I've been doing a lot of photography on the 100 to 400mm zoom, and maybe I'd like to give the 200mm prime lens a try, along with a 2x teleconverter. This video is just about the 200mm lens and converter, but I will be making a comparison video with the 100 to 400mm as well, so if you're interested to see that one, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. And if you find my videos really helped you with your Lumix photography, you can always thank me with a coffee using the link in the description below. So let's get right into it, and we'll start with some specs. This is a relatively big heavy lens, not nearly as heavy as my old Sigma 150 to 500 from back in my pre-Lumix days, but it's still the biggest lens I've had on the G9. It's 174mm long and 88mm wide. At 1245 grams, yes that's 1¼ kilograms, it's almost twice as heavy as the camera itself. With that weight, you're getting a magnesium alloy body and lots of weather sealing, and when you hold it in your hand, there's no debating that this is a solid piece of equipment. The filter thread is 77mm if you're looking to buy a UV or other filter. It comes with a large detachable lens hood, which is almost 2/3 the length of the lens. There's a little screw near the base that locks it into position, and you can put it on backwards to save space for storage. When it's on backwards, you do lose access to the manual focus ring and the manual aperture ring. When you buy the lens, it also comes with a 1.4x teleconverter as a standard inclusion. I don't have that. Panasonic sent me the 2x converter, so I'll be testing that one out instead. Anyway, when you put all this together, it's a pretty substantial unit. Let's just say when you're carrying all this around, people are going to see you coming. Finally, it comes with a detachable footer attachment to fit it onto a tripod. They didn't send me that, so I'm using the one I already had from my 100 to 400mm lens. I believe the one that comes with this lens is slightly different, but they'll do the same job, so you get the idea. As any Micro Four Thirds user knows, the 2x crop factor means this is equivalent to a 400mm lens in full frame terms, and with the 2x teleconverter, that makes it effectively an 800mm lens. While I expect most people would be buying this for wildlife, bear in mind it has a close focus capability of just 115cm, and that's close enough to open up plenty of other possibilities as well. Okay, let's move on to operation, and we have 4 switches on the side of the lens, and I want to take a look at all of them. At the back of the lens, closest to the camera, you have the AF/MF switch. This gives you the option of switching between autofocus and manual focus, either here on the lens or with the switch on the back of the camera. And if you use back button focus, you can also select MF on the lens and AF on the camera, and you can have a combination of both. Below that you have the optical image stabilizer switch. The G9 offers dual stabilization, combining the power of the lens stabilizer with the in-body stabilization of the camera, and believe me, you're going to be glad to have it. In a moment, when I start showing samples, I'll show you just how much difference this dual stabilization system makes. Over to the left you have a switch that lets you choose between using the full autofocus range or limiting it to a range of 3 meters to infinity. For those who haven't used big telephoto lenses before, this is a great efficiency feature when you're shooting things in the distance, because when you lose focus on your subject, it tells the camera not to waste time searching for something at close range. Just remember to switch it back to full when you're shooting close-ups. Finally, there's a button and switch I never saw before, so I had to get my friends at Panasonic to give me some pointers. You have the option of assigning one of the many custom functions to this button. Then when you push the switch to the right FN position, pressing that button will trigger that function. But I haven't done that, so I can't demonstrate it. So let's look at the other use for this button, which is a really clever focus memory feature. Let's say you focus on something 20 meters away. With the switch in the center memory position, you press the button and the camera will remember that precise focus distance. Then switch left to the call position. Now you can focus anywhere you like, as often as you like, but whenever you press that button, the focus will instantly snap back to the 20-meter distance you saved. I did this quick and very unexciting demo in my driveway to show the focus memory in action. In the real world, I can see this being a great feature for sports photographers. Imagine you're shooting a cricket match and you focus on the batsman at the crease, and then you save that focus point. Then you could photograph the other players, the scoreboard, people in the stadium, whatever you like, knowing that every time he's about to hit the ball, you can snap the focus back to that spot. I haven't really had the chance to test this out properly, but I can see for a lot of photographers this would very quickly become a must-have feature. In front of all those switches you have the manual focus and aperture dials. The largest is the manual focus ring, and although I haven't used it much, you can really feel the quality. The ridged grip makes handling easy and the action is incredibly smooth. Then you have the aperture ring, and like another lens I looked at recently, this gives you two ways to control the aperture. Right now I'm turning the dial to select my f-stop. The settings printed on the dial show full stop settings, but the ring rotates a third of a stop at a time, with a nice healthy click as each notch slides into place. You can also switch the ring to the A position, and then you manage your aperture using the aperture control dial on the camera body. The movement in the dial is easy, but firm enough that you're not likely to knock it into the wrong position by accident. Now here you can see with the aperture dial switched to f2.8, the control dial on the camera does nothing. But when I turn the dial to the A position, then I can set my aperture using the control dial the same way I do for my other lenses. And by the way, with the 2x converter, you obviously get twice the magnification, but you sacrifice 2 stops of light. Here I'm doing the same demo, but this time with the teleconverter attached, and you can see I can now only open my aperture as wide as f5.6. Okay, there's my quick look at the lens and its features, but we all know the questions people really want answered. Does it make good photos and is it sharp? Well, the answer is yes. Yes, it makes very good photos, and yes, it is very, very sharp. I haven't had much opportunity yet to use the 2x converter, but when I have, it's certainly sharp and possibly even sharper than the 100 to 400mm lens I already own. I haven't really done a serious side-by-side comparison with the two lenses yet, but keep an eye out because that's a video I plan to make as well. But when it comes to the 200mm f2.8 lens on its own, well, it's not just sharp, it may just be the sharpest lens I've ever used. It's certainly the sharpest telephoto lens I've ever used. I almost said sharpest I've ever owned, but I have to keep reminding myself I have to give this one back. Rather than talk about the sharpness, I'm going to show you the results of a visit to Australia Zoo. I'm going to show you some still photos, but also some video clips to show you how it goes using AFC and the Animal Detect autofocus mode. And be sure to watch the baby giraffe clip right through to get a real feel for the quality of the dual stabilizer. So, enjoy the photos. I'll have more on this excellent lens coming soon, so be sure to subscribe. I'm Andrew Goodall, this is Nature's Image Photography. Thanks for watching. So now, as you can see, I'm in the reptile house at Australia Zoo. This is a, I guess you could just about call it a nocturnal house. It's quite dark and dimly lit. Each little exhibit has its own light source, but pretty much all of them are fairly low light. And this is a place where my 100 to 400 has always struggled because of the lack of a wide aperture. I've always had to pump the ISO right up. So I'll be putting the 200 f2.8 back on here, and I'll be seeing how well it performs in this lower light environment. So as you can see, we are over now at the Africa exhibit, and I was quite pleased to find out when I got here that they have just had the arrival of a new baby giraffe. Here he is being photographed or videoed on the 200mm f2.8. In a moment I'm going to put on my 2x adapter and make it a 400 and see how that goes, but this is my first viewing of this little baby giraffe, who apparently is about 8 weeks old and just been put on public display. So now I am shooting a bit of video with the 2x converter on, which means I'm using a 400mm lens at the moment, and I thought I would just test it to try out the image stabilizer. Now this is with the image stabilizer on, and now I'm going to flick it off. There we go. Now I am still trying to keep the camera as steady as I can, but that's the difference between having it on and, having it off and having it on. Now that's a massive difference. Let's just do that one more time. I'm using the Animal Detect continuous autofocus at the moment, which is keeping the focus quite steady on the giraffe. Even if I move the camera to the left and right, the focus stays neatly on the baby giraffe. But what we're really looking at here now is that stabilizer, and we'll do that one more time. Here he goes, he's going for a stroll, and stabilizer back on.